Why is it that we have all this experience and all of these life lessons? Why is it that as leaders we just can't think great thoughts on our own and get it done? What is it about sharing and talking it through with other people that makes such a difference?
Well, I think it's actually quite hard to think alone. I mean, there's a really funny experiment that where somebody's put in a kind of locked room and there's absolutely nothing to do but think. And the only available distraction is a little gizmo that gives you a mild electric shock. And in the experiment, almost everybody prefers the electric shock to just sitting there quietly and thinking. So, which suggests to me that actually it's a very hard thing to do. And, the philosopher Hannah Arendt used to define thinking as having a conversation with yourself. But having a conversation with yourself is difficult. And it's often difficult because we have fears and doubts about ourselves. So it can become unproductive quite quickly too. So I think having a conversation with someone who is unequivocally on your side, who wants only the best for you and your organization, is probably the closest you can come to having out loud the kind of conversation that is thinking. So for me, often a great mentoring conversation is about being able to unpick something so that you can see really what's going on. And then for the mentee, it's become suddenly very clear what needs to be done. But it's almost in explaining and unpacking the problem that the solution presents itself.
Yeah, having that thinking partner who can poke you in the eye in a good way, of course, to say, is that a self-limiting belief? Is that really true? Those questions really matter. And as you say, saying it out loud actually is also a really big part of it. It manifests itself, doesn't it, as something much clearer.
Well, I think that's right. And I think also, there's a lot that we all tend in leadership positions to dismiss as trivial because they manifest as trivial. But actually, when you start to unpick them, there's something deep inside them.
I think you're right. I did a course on nonviolent communication a couple of years ago. And the two big things that came out of it were around a table of people in challenging debate / conflict, was that a human being needs to be heard first, really heard. And I think that speaks to our mentoring when we're sitting and listening. We don't just listen for what they say, but for what comes next as well. So that pause is really important.
Yeah, and I remember the chairman of Nokia said to me, it's an incredible thing for people to feel heard. And it's one of the most powerful things a leader can do. And all it is silence and attention. But it's a powerful way to build trust.
One of the things that is happening during the pandemic and in times when leaders are under pressure is that they feel increasingly isolated. They have this sense that they're on their own. They don't have a view of what's out there. They might not even feel like they ought to be asking for help. Resilience, perhaps that's the other side of resilience, isn't it? Is not asking for help. What's everyone else doing is perhaps the question that's on their minds, and one that maybe they don't dare to ask.
I think the truth is that when you're running an organization, your head is 100% inside that organization. It just can't not be. It's, the job is too demanding. It's too full on. And yet we crave a sense of context. And I think that's part of the value that we bring, is that because we work with all kinds of organizations and all of our colleagues also do pro bono work, you know, we see quite a wide spectrum of possibility. And I can remember, you know, running my tech companies, just always wishing I knew, well, you know, am I the only person who's finding this really difficult? To which the answer I now know was absolutely not. Everybody wrestles with that. That's a huge relief, you know, because I'm sitting there thinking, is this only difficult for me because I'm inadequate? Or is this just a really, really hard problem? And are there different ways I could be thinking about it? And gosh, I wish I'd had somebody who could have answered that question for me.